This will be Matthew 10:38 and on, where Jesus sends out his disciples, and Jesus talks about John. And to get that text up, we have this, and we're going to start right out by saying all these aren't even truthful, and I'll show you why. Who has found his life will lose it. You cannot find your life. Who has lost his life, I guess we don't know that Jesus was not as smart as everybody thinks he was, because this stuff makes him look like an idiot. He who receives me receives him who sent me. You can't receive Jesus, and you can't, you can't, you can't receive our Creator. Who receives a prophet? Well, you will receive a prophet's reward. Everybody's reward is to enter heaven. Okay, so this reward of a prophet doesn't mean anything. And a righteous man in the name of righteous man will receive a righteous man's reward. Righteousness is about your obeying our Creator. And if you're obeying our Creator, his will is to have you live in heaven with him forever. Now, whoever receives a disciple's name, one of these little ones, a cup of water to drink, truly I say, and whoever in the name of a disciple gives to one of these little ones even a cup of cold water to drink, truly I say, he will not lose his reward. I guess the reward is not very high here, but the object is these are not true. Don't need the beginning of this. When Jesus finished, that had finished, but Jesus finished giving them his instructions, giving him his instructions. Used his this way, not all capital letters. The 12, which actually means 11, because Judas was with them no longer. The 11 disciples left from him to teach and preach in pagan cities. It says their cities. Now, this is it now coming back to where Jesus is speaking about going into Judah, okay? Because up here, we have Jesus telling them about his teaching of people to other nations. So it's not to change this to be Judah, I would be preaching in Judah's cities, or in Judah without the word cities. So don't know until I start combining them whether this verse needs to be changed or not. They didn't depart from him, they left him. And then now we're going to get into Jesus talking about John. Now, let me see something here about John, because, where is H? Boy, find John, and I need to go upwards, up, because I'm not sure right now. Okay, yeah. See, disciples from John came to him and asked, "Why do not mourn for John?" This means that John's already dead. Okay, so that's what this means here. But you can see I might have added 14. Okay, let me get up here to 14. Nope, they had John here. So the text is really, really out of order because everything Jesus now is going to talk about John is as if he's still alive. Yeah, we're right here. So John is all of a sudden miraculous here in the middle is alive now. So I don't need the word now. When John, well, if he wasn't in prison, or if he was in prison, but we already know he's dead, heard the works of Jesus, why would he be in sending out his disciples to say, are you the one we're looking, or we're looking for someone else? And he said, so it's kind of confusing here as what we know is the story that when Jesus came to be baptized, it was about them hearing about Jesus' healing power or healing ability is why John sent them over to Jesus. And then he said, yes, I'm coming. So this here might not even be included in the final text because it's really out of order, and it is something that can be excluded because we know there's a better story of them coming to John or Jesus. But to correct the text here, because I needed to get John out of prison, because John never came out of prison. So the object here is to clean up this text. We can't have John in prison and Jesus coming to John. Coming to John here. Are you expected coming to John? See, this is, maybe I should exclude all of it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this and probably get rid of it later. Not of the works, but healings. They would not call, Jesus was healing people and raising people from the dead. It wasn't known as works. Christ is a title after he is crucified. That's the title they gave Jesus. So we can't have the word Christ. We need the word Jesus, name Jesus. And they didn't say to him, they asked him, are you coming to John? I needed to add John here. Or are we looking for someone else? Not, or will we look, or are we looking for someone else with a question mark? So even though the text might be excluded, I'm going to leave it there for now. These two verses come down here. Jesus answered them, said to them, Jesus answered and said to them, Jesus answered them, report to John what he heard, not what you heard, because remember the verse up here was John was in prison when he heard Jesus, and he's sending them to him. So not what you heard, he heard, they have seen. They have seen. Why did I add the word? Oh, because he's talking about the people that they have seen, what you hear and see. Because Jesus, when he talks about all these things, John's disciples did not see this. He's informing what they said, so that's why I needed, they have seen. The blind see, and I just changed the word sight to see. The lame now walk. Lepers are not cleansed, they're healed. The deaf now hear, and the dead, for me, are alive. And that's very important to say, that they just weren't raised up. They are alive, okay? And then I needed to make sure that they were for him. That way, Jesus would not be healing those that did not believe in him. And our poor, meaning John, the text is referring to the Israelis, those of our poor, have my teaching preached to them. And that's what Jesus was out doing, not his gospel, it's his teaching. The word gospel is, when I defined in the video about the word gospel, I use this as saying what the word was defined as. And you define what the word gospel as. Jesus defines it as my gospel. So when you read Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, no, those were their understandings of Jesus's gospel. So then I can move on to this verse here. Needed to add the word for. Blessed were they, past tense, who did not stumble because of me. And I'm just trying to figure out why I'm using the word were. And that's because he's talking about these people here that he healed. So it's not like this is talking about the future. This verse is talking about what was just said. So, who did not stumble because of me. And that you don't stumble over Jesus, by the way. But it was that they were believing, and Jesus is king, is their king in heaven, the promised one son from Abraham, Jacob, and then David. Then I think there's another promise later from another king through David, but it was always referred to as David's son, who has become the king in heaven forever and have a kingdom for us. So even though this is what it looks like when it's cleaned up, there's still going to be a lot of it that is removed or needed to be adjusted. Needed to do a lot of correcting, as you see, and a lot of added words are needed here. As these were going away, now this is talking about the disciples. So when they left, okay, just changing the word going to left, Jesus told the crowd, not the multitudes, but told the crowd about John. And not why did they go. Now, Jesus, let's see, he's starting to talk to the crowd about John, okay? And at that time, they knew that many of them were going to John to hear what his words were about their king. So this is what Jesus is going to be talking about, is what did you go out to the wilderness to look at? A reed shaken by wind? Well, let's put it this way. It's not what did you, why did you, why did they go to the Jordan River, not the wilderness, but to the Jordan River to see him, meaning they're referring to John, not to look at, but to see John. Okay? So I guess I've added this word here as well. Boy, that wheel really sensitive there. And these words, they just don't need to be added. I mean, Jesus is specifically talking about John. So why would they go to the wilderness to look at a reed? But a reed isn't in the wilderness. It's by water. So that's why I have to have Jordan River down here. And we can remove this here. Now Jesus is talking about, does he dressed in linen? Does he dress? Because I'm trying to see, when they left Jesus, told the crowd about him. Why did they go to the Jordan River to see him? Does he? I don't like the way I've got. Do those dressed in linen, like those wearing linen in the? It's going to be do those dressed in linen, like those wearing linen in the king's palace. This is referring that Jesus is referring to the very upper echelon of clothing, not dressed in soft, but dressed in linen. That was a very, even today, it's not high as silk, but maybe I should use the word silk and not linen. Because it did come from India. They were well aware of India. Yeah, I'm going to change it to silk. And now we know that there's other rich out there. Need to take this and just noting for myself what's changed. Like those wearing silk in the king's palace. And it wouldn't be palaces. We have a hard time even finding King David's. It depends on when you look at when the kings were building a palace for themselves. King David never had a palace, but he had a house for himself. And that's when they started learning how to make things a house-like structure. And they didn't have that ability. Solomon had to send to, can't think of the king's name, in Lebanon to help build the house for our Creator, which would have been the outside scaffolding and to be able to use the timber for the roof and how to do that as well. So probably the equipment to do it. They needed to learn how to use the saws and chisels and planes and stuff like that. So that's how that text is going to be finished up or used as in the next text as I go forward. No, it says, why did you? I can't say that Jesus was speaking to every one of them did this. So I needed to just say, they went out to see a prophet. Okay. And I say, doesn't need the word yes, he is more than a prophet. For he is not this one. Jesus would not be referring to John as this one. For John, which we know that he's talking about, so I don't need to use the word John here, for he is whom it is prophesied. You can't use the word written because it was a prophecy, and this is the prophecy. I sent my messenger before, this would be Jesus coming. Even though John and Jesus are maybe less than 9 months apart, the coming referred here is Jesus's year of the Lord. It's prophesied that there will be a special year that Jesus makes himself known. So this is the word coming as I'm using it here, before your coming, who will prepare their way before you, not prepare your way, but their way before you. So as you see down here, it's Jesus in your coming, who is how the text is who's the text referring to, will prepare their way before you, which means getting people to be forgiven so he doesn't have to go around and keep forgiving people, which means there was a lot of people that went to John. Now, this would have been over, we don't know really when John went out to the wilderness, but we know that he had probably been there, I would say if he was 25, if he was out there at 17, 18, so somewhere around there, and he was doing this for 7, 8 years, then there would have been a lot of people that John was baptizing, because they all were, when they came to him, they were really believing Jesus is coming. Okay. Now here's something funny that Jesus says. Truly I say, you among those born of women. Now, they didn't have cloning back in them days, so whatever this has got Jesus being stupid here, we're going to get rid of those words. Truly I say, there has not risen a prophet greater than John. And it says you're Baptist, don't need Baptist, because actually John is a heralder who is able to forgive. They probably used the name as a Baptist because he's baptizing those in the river for their repentance of just speaking their sin, which is sin is defined by our Creator as not obeying the 12 commandments. And then, so John is special by doing this forgiving, but it's also John is being the heralder of Jesus. All prophets before then were saying, here he's coming. John's saying he's here, and now you're to repent so you can be clean before him. Yet, who is the lesser in my kingdom in heaven is as great as he is. Not the least, but lesser. And I have to have his kingdom. Least in the kingdom, Jesus is telling them that it's his kingdom in heaven, and he is the one who is to forgive. But the object is Jesus is explaining how great John is and how among the prophets, because the prophets are or were held in high degree until the later days when they were being killed. But among the people who believe, they were held as the ones coming with word from our Creator. So they were held in high esteem. So Jesus is trying to say that even though John was the greatest prophet, he is still equal to anyone who enters into heaven. Boy, this mouse button, I got to get a different mouse. I'm not even touching it, and it's moving. All the days to John your Baptist, okay, and now we're going to use the title Baptist, meaning the one who has forgiven you of your sin, as John was forgiving. John replaced the priests because the priests were corrupt. My kingdom in heaven suffered violence, and that's what Jesus is talking about here. Is what I'm referring to is the priests were corrupt. Remember, you already know the story. They didn't believe in Jesus. The judges, the lawyers didn't. A lot of them were onto the female goddess. Not all of them, but many of the priests were. And I know I've gone over that a couple times. So I don't want to beat that to death neither. And then it's got violent men take it by force. Like you can enter into heaven by force. That's just absolutely stupidity. And all his prophets prophesied about me. That's what I needed to make sure. The prophets and the laws prophesied about me. But we're strictly talking about prophets, so we don't need and the laws. That's just, we don't need those. Need that in this verse. Prophesied about me until John. And that's what I mean. John was saying he's here. Okay, now this is where Jesus talks about reincarnation. If you can accept it, he himself is Elijah who is to come, or who was to come. This is absolutely falseness because that is an absolute reverse teaching of each person going to having one body, one soul. Now, I've studied reincarnation and what their belief is in reincarnation. And every once in a while, they go looking for like their highest knowledgeable preacher of Buddhism or most knowledgeable person. They have this secret knowledge when they get so high, and they and a lot of the practices aren't known to the common world. Even inside Buddhism, it's restricted as secret because they haven't come up with what they call a formula to make sure everyone can follow this path. Now, that's out of the text that I'm able to find and read, and I stopped reading in, what was it, 1990, about anything like that. But the object is this would be a teaching against what our Creator teaches. Our Creator doesn't teach reincarnation. He is the one who sends your soul at conception time for your the manifestation of the seed to come about has to match the soul that he sent, male or female. So this is just blasphemy here by Jesus, and it's talking about reincarnation. I've yet to have a Christian answer me when I say, okay, well, Jesus believes in reincarnation. They kind of like, what? And then I show it to them. They go, dot, 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 dot. And actually, it's written in 2 different places in the 4 Gospels. But we know the difference, or I know the difference, and Jesus never, that would just be Jesus lying. So you can see the text is being edited not by the good guys. Now, I'm going to race through. This is the text, what it looks like, but I was just looking. I need to see how far I need to go before okay, I think if I hurry, I can get to these. Sorry about that. I just know it's 30 minutes, and I think if I go a little bit faster and not having to explain so much here, these corrections are easy to see. Not what, whom will I compare? Not what will I compare, but whom will I compare? This evil generation. I needed to add the word evil because there was so much evil among the Israelis. Now, remember, there's those that went on to believe in the female goddess. Those are known as Jews, and the others are known as Israelis. That's the way the text, when you see me editing, is how those words specifically point out who are the true believers in Jesus and our Creator are the Israelis. But he's comparing the evil generation, these that are now onto the female goddess. They are like children sitting at a marketplace. Well, actually, they're street corners or markets, places. Well, really, they're street corners, and call out to not others, but to everyone. For example, mythology is being taught in a lot of colleges and even in high school. Mythology is just their secret words of talking about the female goddess and some of the things that happen to the male body with the female goddess. Example, Athena came from Zeus's forehead. Well, that means he was meditating. And seeing the female goddess. So you really should just not even pay attention to mythology and live your life more truthfully. Someday, I'm hoping that as this knowledge is spread around to everyone, that people will raise up, vote for the true, honest person. Not like the deceiving politics that we've got today. It's absolutely sickening. The worst I've seen in my lifetime, last probably 15, maybe 20 years. But the object here is that these people go around and are deceiving you by teaching you mythology, just like theologians in the colleges for theologians. They aren't in there correcting the text right now. I mean, I've got Jesus saying stupid things. I've got Jesus even speaking blasphemy. But remember, let's see if I can do this real quick. Up here at the beginning, Matthew 5:20 says, unless your righteousness surpass that of the scribes, you will not enter my kingdom into heaven. So I'm kind of wondering how much you paid attention to Jesus here. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that, should I? Okay, yeah, right here's where I left off. All right, so now we've got this text done. And I'm going to stop here and continue with the next text. So this is a good time to take a screenshot again and then study the text.